Out of nowhere, Graviton Lance got a 67% buff in PvE. Not just to red bars, not just to the exotic perk alone, a straight up 67% increase in damage across the board, which is wild. I know a lot of other people have covered this and made videos on it because there's really nothing else to do in Destiny right now, and a lot of people said that it's insane or meta. So I wanted to give my honest opinion, which is that Graviton is really good and still kind of mid. It can be great and super fun to use, but it's probably never the best weapon to run with, despite the massive buff. All in all, I took this into the legendary campaign where I was 15 power levels under, Legend Avalon where I was like 4 power under, but everything was still a sword, and then I also did this week's GM, which is the Disgraced. There's really no other places in endgame content you can really test anything. If it works when under power, it should work extremely well in all other regular content, and testing 15 to 20 power under with modifiers is by far the hardest that we typically have. With Graviton Lance, the main perk is Black Hole, which increases the damage that the second shot in the 2-round burst deals. So you always want to make sure that you're landing that second shot. And then with this, Cosmology is the second perk, which is now going to spawn void projectiles on any kill you get, which seeks targets and then damages them. And do keep in mind, if that Cosmology detonation gets a kill, it'll spawn more void projectiles. You can chain this back to back. And then lastly, the Catalyst very simply just gives you both Turn 'em Out and then Vorpal Weapon. In underpower content that was not a Grandmaster Nightfall, this thing felt amazing. In Legend Avalon, it ripped through ads, and in the Legend campaign, it also ripped. I was also always running with Gyrfalcon's Hauberk and a really strong build, which I'll quickly cover towards the end of the video if you guys want it. So when combined with volatile rounds, the perk Cosmology and the projectiles spawned by Graviton were insane for ad clear. The other nice part about this being a primary is that you were easily able to just focus on the red bar and all other ads that were super weak, and then all the chain reactions would allow you to constantly be dealing damage to those tankier enemies nearby without actually having to shoot them. Not to mention, even while 15 power under, the damage was still really solid against yellow bar enemies, and oftentimes huge chunks of health would just be taken away from whatever you were shooting. In a Grandmaster Nightfall, on the other hand, it felt considerably worse. That's definitely in part because pulses do not have any champion stunning mods this season through the artifact, but even when using volatile rounds against anti-barrier champions, it didn't feel like anything special. I also didn't have the Catalyst, so Vorpal Weapon would have definitely helped a ton, giving me another 20% increase in damage against the champs. But in my opinion, the bigger issue was just that it felt super slow to play with and weaker against all the yellow bar enemies that you had to deal with. Ad clear in GMs is already pretty easy in my opinion. Graviton definitely has a very sit back and spam shots kind of feel to it. So if that is in general the way that you play GMs, then you'll probably enjoy it more than I did, but compared to a ton of better options that exist currently out there, like double special setups, heavy spam setups with Aeons or Cenotaph, or even ability spam builds, I would take any of those over this in a GM. Overall, I would say the weapon is like an 8 out of 10 in the current state. Definitely one of the better primary weapons now in the entire game, and it's hard to argue that in my opinion. Even when under power and using this without volatile rounds or even a void setup, the ad clear and chain detonations are insane, and they also deal a ton of damage, outright killing red bars on their own, which I think is pretty solid. It's almost like a better version of chain reaction that seeks enemies out more aggressively. Everything also ends up dying in around 2 bursts if you hit the crits, so it definitely competes with a ton of other exotic primaries as well. The only place it really feels bad, as I covered, is in GMs, and I think in seasons with champion mods for pulse rifles, it'll definitely feel much better. I would still always run double special over this, and still probably keep my exotic slot open for other weapons, even if I was running a primary though. To end the video off, I wanted to cover the general Gyrfalcon setup that I use. Obviously, if you don't already, make sure you're running the exotic chest piece Gyrfalcon's Hauberk. And then with this, on the Void subclass, for ad clear, I tend to run Deadfall. Otherwise, just use Moby's Quiver for like champs and boss damage. This is a better dodge if you want to spam dodges for your cooldown. But Gambler's Dodge is better to chain your smoke bombs back and forth because you can use these to enter into the Gyrfalcon's volatile invis cycle more frequently. So it's kind of up to you what dodge you want to run. Also up to you what grenade you want to run. I tend to use Scatter if I want to get kills more frequently, or Vortex if I want to just more consistently apply a debuff to enemies. You do absolutely need the Aspect Stylus execution. This makes it so that whenever you kill an enemy that's affected by a void debuff, whether that's volatile suppression or weaken, you go invis. And then with Gyrfalcons, whenever you come out of invis, that's how you're getting the volatile rounds. So you're essentially chaining volatile to invis to volatile to invis and maintaining that infinitely. And then I also prefer vanishing step because if I ever need invis, I have it through my marksman dodge on demand. Echo of Undermining is just for weaken grenades so that you can apply a debuff of 15% to tankier enemies you want to kill quickly. Echo of Obscurity is just so that you can do finishers, and that's another way that you can infinitely proc invis. So you can get something low, do a finisher, and hop right into the infinite volatile cycle. Echo of Persistence just allows void buffs applied to us, which are going to be Invis, Overshield, and Devour to last longer at base. And then with this, we are also running Echo of Starvation, so that void breaches we create and we pick up, or even Orbs of Power, are going to grant us Devour. And then with Devour active, anytime we land a final blow, we're getting a portion of our grenade straight back, depending on the tier of the enemy that we kill. We get an extension on the Devour effect, and then obviously we're getting full health and full shields. Once again, that's on every single kill we get. When it comes to our mods for this build specifically, I do have Heavy Ammo Scout and Heavy Ammo Finder because we're using an exotic primary weapon. This is going to spawn in a heavy brick with 100% guarantee after I think 15 or 16 kills that we get with Graviton Lance for us and for our team because of the way that Heavy Ammo Finder mods work. And then obviously it's a void weapon, so I do have Void Siphon on as well. A lot of the arm mods are currently disabled. That being said, firepower is still fantastic on this build because our grenade kills gen orbs of power. So we can use this to start up the Devour cycle, and then we get a ton of grenades as is anyways through Devour. I do have Heavy Handed on. This is pretty much useless on the build currently. I would swap this out for Bolstering Detonation or even like a loader mod, but this is currently disabled right now. On my chest, I just run resistance-based armor mods to stay alive more frequently, and then on my boots, I do run Innervation, so I get even more grenade energy when picking up Orbs of Power, and then Insulation, so I get the same thing, but class ability energy instead. This is really nice because it helps with our dodge ability uptime, so that we can always go invis, which means we always have volatile rounds on demand, and I do also have stacks on stacks. Lastly, on my class item, the reason we have stacks on stacks is so it feeds into our armor charge stacks more frequently so we can spam special finisher for myself and teammates to get special ammo. And then powerful attraction is nice because anytime I dodge, that's picking up orbs of power in a certain radius around me, which will again instantly be proccing Devour, giving full health, full shields, and then also giving us more armor charge stacks. So if I need to dodge, collect an orb of power far away, and then go straight into a special finish, that helps as well. And then lastly, I do tend to run Proximity Ward because I use a bunch of finishers so I can go invis in sketchy situations, and this just helps me stay alive while getting those off. Just as a final recap, Graviton is definitely amazing now, and I think it's one of the best primaries in the game. It offers really good ad clear, similar to Chain Reaction, while having really solid damage even in underpowered content, but I don't think that alone makes it meta. I would put it on the same scale as something like Sunshot, which I would definitely use for fun, or if my exotic slot is open, or if I needed an exotic primary specifically, but other options are still much better. Let me know your thoughts on Graviton Lance in the comments down below. And we did just start doing Trio Garden speedruns, which I'm streaming over on my Twitch. As always, have a good one, guys. Peace.